Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Monir El Azzouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll provide you a major update, something that you should not miss. So listen until the end. Because I think it's really an important one for today. And for that, I have with me Erik Vollebregt. So Erik, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Thanks, Monir. Thanks for having me again. This is the second time this week.
Exactly, yeah, because I think I thought summer will be if I can say July, August will be a period where everybody is more going on holiday and things, but no, there are a lot of updates. So yeah, we had the battery discussion last time. Now we will have this major update on the proposal. I mean, the proposal is not anymore a proposal, it's now voted for the interruption or discontinuation of supply. But yeah, I mean, is there something else that we should maybe prepare for our next episode?
For this summer, lots of things.
We are preparing also a discussion that on German proposal, the medical device live expert that we will be doing in August. So we are also preparing that. Just a spoiler alert for people. We are also preparing for this. But I don't know if there is other topics that are really hot on the pan here.
Well, I do hear that there are rumors that the EIFU regulation is going to be revised again. So this is maybe something to look out for.
So I have a project on EIFU, so it's why I would be really interested to listen to what they are proposing, because this is the major thing that people are asking. EIFU e-labeling also. I see a lot of people talking about that on conferences, also e-labeling. So I don't know if there is any progress on this.
And then of course what people should watch for is rollout of the AI regulation, right? Because the AI regulation is about to be published. So when it is published, then it enters into force 20 days later, and then you have your timetable. So
exactly.
That's for one. That's quite important.
Exactly, and we are planning also the AI Act Summit in October 1st for people. I think your company. You said your company is also planning something for AI. So I think there are a lot of conferences that will maybe come talking about artificial intelligence soon.
Yes, yeah.
So let's dive into the topic. And I wanted just for the beginning to make a reminder of the changes that are happening. There is a major update of the EU MDR and IVDR. With the votation. So can we just summarize again what is this update? And then we can focus more on the part called interruption or discontinuation of supply and tell you more about how it's working.
Yeah, so the update, it was the January proposal, right, of this year, in which the Commission proposed three things. So there was a proposal about information about discontinuation and interruption of supply of medical devices and IVDs. That's one. Then there was a very major reshuffle of deadlines for legacy devices under the IVDR, which looks a lot like what they did with the MDR pretty much last year, but is not completely the same.
Yeah.
Because, as we said, for medical devices, there was for every risk class, there was the same date on which you needed to file a notified body technical documentation and QMS application. Whereas for the IVDR, they have staggered these dates by risk class, starting 26 May 2025 for Class D, 26 May 2026 for Class C, 27 for Class B and Class C, which is relevant for the interruption of supply provisions that we are going to discuss later.
Exactly.
And then, it's important to know that for the IVDR, the Commission also has just 2 days ago issued guidance that looks like the Commission Q&A about the MDR legacy device transitional regime that they issued last year. So that was just issued for the IVDR. The Commission has also updated the July 2023 version of the Q&A for this amendment to the MDR. except that the document that they published, I think, contains the right text, but it doesn't contain the right version reference. So the document that they made published still has the front page of the old guidance. So I alerted the commission. They said, oops, we will fix this. And not sure if that happened already. And then the third point in this review, that is UDAT.
Yeah, the rollout of UDAT.
Gradual rollout of UDAT.
And there was a new communication today about it.
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
Yeah, yesterday at the end of the afternoon, the Commission published just a single slide, which says draft in the background, so you never know what's going to happen. But that's what they call the current planning for gradual rollout and modules functionality view. And what it does is it confirms what we already heard in rumors, is that we are going to have a 3-step rollout of UDAT. So there is the, just looking at the timeline here. So early 26, so beginning first quarter 2026, there's going to be mandatory use of the modules that are already up and running on a voluntary basis. So that would be actors, UDI devices, and notified bodies and certificates, and as well as market surveillance, which is already running in the back, right? That's not public because
not public, yeah.
Authorities. Then half 26, the vigilance module will also become mandatory, and in each of these cases there will be the 6 months prior notice before in the official journal saying now this part is ready, go in 6 months. And then the slide doesn't say anything about the 6th module of UDAT, which is the clinical investigation and performance evaluation module. So I guess that is on the whenever timeline.
But I mean, how many times they have updated this slide or this timeline? It's crazy. I mean, the team that is maybe updating that, they start to finalize it, and maybe they have a new update already that is ongoing.
I still remember this video of the EBSCO Council meeting in December 2019, where all the member states were really angry with the Commission because they said that because the Commission said that UDAT was never going to be finished even close to in time. Yeah, and that's basically nothing really changed since that. And another important deadline, that's one for the big manufacturers, is that October 2024, so October this year, the machine-to-machine interfacing specifications will finally be delivered, which means that the big ones can finally start building their machine-to-machine interfaces for uploading to UDAT, which is hugely important because this basically made it impossible to do any meaningful large-scale interaction with UDAT so far.
I mean, it's important for those that have a lot of articles, a lot of references on their portfolio. If you have few references, you can do that manually. No need to invest on all this. But if you have a lot of references, I think a machine to machine is really the must, because each time you will be updating something, you'll have to redo that manually. So if you have 12,000, as some of my clients have 12,000 articles on their portfolio, it can be a nightmare for them. So yeah.
Yeah, you need lots of cheap labor to do that by hand.
Exactly.
That would be contrary to the ESG directive.
ESG what?
The social responsibility governance directive.
We have to be careful of that. So these are the main updates that were happening. So now all of this was voted. So now it will be, is it implemented now, or when it will be implemented, all this?
Yeah, so 9 July, the regulation amending the MDR was published in the official journal. It also entered into force on that day, so that means that it applies as of then, except for one thing, and that is Article 10A.
Yeah.
So that is the information obligations for discontinuation or interruption of supply, both for medical devices and IVDs. Very important, because everybody always talks about MDR in this context, but it's very important for the IVD people to realize that this is just as applicable to them and also already applies.
Exactly. So it's we talked about that this difference between MDR and IVDR. So we have the date for this Article 10A on the 10th of January 2025. That is written.
Sorry, I was not precise in what I said, because indeed the amending regulation applies as of 9 July.
Exactly.
The obligation in Article 10A applies as of 10 January 2025. So that means that there is a transition period.
Exactly, it's a transition period. So it doesn't mean that you should not start to do it or to work on it now. You should. I mean, as you said, I think you said something interesting, like maybe they have some companies that like last minute things. So.
No, I mean, I do have clients that really like their last minute stress things. But if you're a smart company, then you start to prepare already now. Maybe you would have already started way before, because it was quite clear for some time what this was going to look like. Also because of the position that the Commission took in the legislative procedure, because the Commission basically, they had a clever strategy of saying, like, everything is linked in this proposal. And if you change one thing, then it could jeopardize all the other things. So nobody is basically allowed to just look at this proposal wrong, because otherwise the whole thing goes south. I think it was a clever strategy that intimidated the other institutional actors and also industry, by the way, in refraining from serious lobbying or attempts to change it. But the problem is that we now have a spectacularly unclear Article 10A, MDR, and IVDR, which we basically have to work with now.
So what is the content of this article? So here we talk interruption or discontinuation of supply. What does it mean exactly for people that are listening now? So, I mean, what does it mean at all?
Yeah, so to give some context, basically, it all started with the, let's say, really unwise policy choices underlying the transitional regime. Yeah. To basically say everybody needs a new certificate, and oh, by the way, we will also all the notified bodies need to be notified again. They need to be assessed, because otherwise we can't really trust what they are doing. Well, I mean, it has some logic to it, but if you look at it, especially with hindsight, it was a really bad choice, because first of all the notified bodies were not able to process all the certificates that they have been issuing over the years in a short period, because you had this huge bulge in the pipeline. But then this huge bulge in the pipeline also could only be dealt with a smaller amount of capacity, because it took so long for all the notified bodies to get notified. So the capacity to deal with this bulge also only grew slowly. So that means that we ended up in a situation that there was repeated moving of the deadlines for legacy devices, because the idea was more legacy devices, less incentive for manufacturers to discontinue devices because notified bodies have no capacity, it's too expensive, it's too unclear, all of that. So that's basically the background. And even in this last amendment, you still see that they're still amending even for the IVDR. So still we are fixing choices that were made before 2017. It's pretty sad actually.
Exactly.
So then so that is the legacy devices part. Now the problem is, of course, that what also started to happen is that hospitals started to report that they were facing problems because manufacturers were telling them, look, we are discontinuing this device, or we cannot get a certificate in time, so we are stopping this device for until further notice. And what the thought was then was there was no European, let's say, handle on the information for this. So it was decided to basically, make manufacturers part of the problem, in the sense that if a manufacturer decides that they are going to interrupt or discontinue supply, then, and that has serious consequences in one or more member states, then they need to inform the competent authorities and the supply chain, and they need to also tell the competent authority the reasons why they interrupt or discontinue the device, which I think is actually pretty far going.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's nice for the authorities that they get a lot of information, but I think they will get a lot of information that they don't want to hear because.
Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss, or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com. So I think here is mainly this threatening, if I can say, threatening of this shortage. So are we here talking about all devices, like the small class 1 device that maybe will be stopping to be supplied, or we are talking about only the major ones like pacemakers, class 3 or class D devices, etc.? So is there a distinction between low risk and high risk?
No, every risk class, and also legacy devices and new regulation devices.
So everything. So I have a small device of a class 1 that is ridiculous, like maybe a Goning or I don't know, something like that.
Or a tongue spatula or something like that, yes. Exactly. Well, but, and see, this is why this is such a problem. And this is also why manufacturers need to prepare, because basically every time you discontinue, you are planning to discontinue or interrupt the supply of a device, you need to do a risk assessment. And the risk assessment is not for, there's one exemption, by the way, not as regards risk class, but as status, and that is custom-made devices. Custom-made devices are exempted. But the risk assessment that you need to do is whether the interruption or discontinuation could result in serious harm or a risk of serious harm to patients or public health in one or more member states. Now, obviously, I mean, it really depends on the device whether something like that happens. And basically, the more, let's say, unique a device is, and the more high risk it might be, the bigger the impact is on patient harm when you discontinue it. But I mean, as we've seen, for example, in COVID, if you are not able to supply surgical masks, for example, which are pretty low risk,
class 1,
it's maybe a huge impact on public health, right? So it's not that, let's say, the chance that you need to report equals the risk class, for example, or is proportionate to the risk class. Let's put it like that.
So it's important here what you are saying, because here you have maybe some companies that will read this saying, oh yeah, but our device is not threatening the life of anybody or whatever. But as you say, it depends also of the context, it depends of the situation at the moment, etc. So at the end, we should not restrict, as a manufacturer, we should not restrict any device from being reported. Means is the EU Commission, or who are the authorities? Are like every authorities like competent authorities, or is the EU Commission that will collect all those information? Are they ready to
Well,
receive all those flow of data?
that would be really nice if it would be the Commission, because then you would have
Yeah,
a
exactly.
neutral point to report. But no, why would you have a central point of reporting, or even report it in UDAT, if you can have something else, right? So
Exactly.
the problem with this regulation is that it doesn't rely on UDAT. There are rumors of setting up a specific website for this, but I haven't seen any super concrete plans about it. But in the end, the rule is that the manufacturer needs to inform the competent authority of the member state where the manufacturer is based, or where the manufacturer's authorized representative is based.
Okay.
This is also interesting because it doesn't say that the authorized representative may inform on behalf of the manufacturer. So this is an optional element in the mandate of the authorized representative. So this means that if you are, let's say, a Japanese, US, Chinese, whatever manufacturer, and you want your authorized representative to notify the authorities for you about these disruptions or interruptions of supply, you need to update the authorized representative mandate. If you have an independent authorized representative, then you need to check whether they want to include this in the mandate. Otherwise, you have to do it yourself. So this is actually a first step for manufacturers. Like, am I going to do it myself, or am I going to do it through the authorized representative? And in that case, is my authorized representative mandated for this?
Exactly.
Also, this is something that you could also mandate your PRRC as an additional element to provide supervision over, which I think would be a clever thing to do, actually.
Yeah.
Now then, the next step is you also need to inform not only the competent authority, but you also need to inform economic operators,
Distributors,
healthcare professionals, to which you as a manufacturer directly supply the device. So that means if you are a manufacturer, let's say you don't know anybody in your supply chain, right? Then as a manufacturer, you inform your importer, because it's the first link in the chain. If you are a manufacturer, for example, that is integrated in a corporate group, then, well, you probably know your end users, but the proposal, the provision doesn't account for that, right? So then the question is, what are you going to do? Because then there is another part of the proposal. Keep calling it proposal, but it's already
law. Yeah, so exactly. Me too, I do the same.
There's another part of Article 10A that says if you are an economic operator and you receive this information from another economic operator, then you need to pass it down the supply chain.
Yeah.
So for integrated groups, it might be a very good idea that the manufacturer takes charge, because otherwise the whole group needs to figure out in the supply chain how to do this, which is a risk. And then for the independent distributors, what you want is, of course, you would want to deal with this in your distribution agreements, right? Because
so in terms of, we say we have to inform the competent authority and the healthcare professionals or supply chain, whatever. So if, for example, my competent authority that I have to report is, for example, in Belgium, but my products that I'm supplying mainly is in France, I should contact Belgium authority, and will Belgium authority inform France authority or not at all?
That is the assumption.
Okay.
But the assumption also is that as a manufacturer, you are able to make the risk assessment, even if you don't know your whole supply chain. Like in your example, let's say you supply only in Belgium, and you have a distributor also in Belgium, and you don't know where they supply to. They may supply to Bulgaria, may supply to Cyprus, they may supply to Portugal. These are completely alien countries to you. Still, the proposal, the Article 10A expects that you as a manufacturer are able to know whether in that case a Portuguese hospital would get issues, a Bulgarian hospital would get issues, or the Cypriotic hospital would get issues, which is basically impossible.
So does it mean, from what you are saying, my conclusion is that if I have to act on what you are saying, we have to update also the agreement with those people, because usually they are not telling us who are their customers. So is this what mainly the Commission is asking you to do now?
Well, we don't know yet, because this hasn't been clarified. So the Commission is working on guidance. There's also been draft guidance circulating, but it's not really clear whether this is guidance coming from the CAMD, right? So the Competent Authorities Club, or whether it comes from the MDCG, which is the ones that are actually making guidance for the MDR and the IVDR. There was supposed to be a workshop with stakeholders about this before the summer, but now it looks like this is not going to happen. So the workshop will be after the summer. So that means that, it might take until after the summer before we actually know how this guidance is supposed to be interpreted. Because and there's two ways to look at this. Either you can say the manufacturer has to make the, let's say, abstract risk assessment. If I discontinue or disrupt supply, what do I know? What facts do I have that could give rise to a potential problem in one or more member states? Or you can say, no, the manufacturer must know his whole supply chain and be able to decide on a full picture of the facts. I think the latter option is not realistic.
It was not realistic already for vigilance reporting. When you have a recall to do, you are not going directly to your customers. You are going to the distributor who goes to the rest. So
I mean, that's the reality of the supply chain. It's also not realistic for post-market surveillance, where you exactly know what your end users are doing. You just don't know. So that means that I think the only realistic risk assessment that you can make is a very abstract risk assessment, like if I don't supply this device, what's the worst that could happen? But that also means that you are basically making a kind of an abstract, spinning your wheels risk assessment that isn't based on the real facts, which means that it's maybe not as useful as you would want it to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because what you are then getting is, and this is problematic. This is also something we've seen with legislation on informing of shortages of supply for medicinal products, which is around for quite a long time. They have invented the wheel on this point already, and also found out that some things just don't work. So, for example, a problem is if you don't meet the obligation, it's an infringement of the MDR or the IVDR, for which you can get sanctions under local law. So what happened, for example, with medicines, they also started with this kind of provisions, which were just as vague as they are for the MDR and the IVDR. So then, at least in the Netherlands, the authorities were under political pressure because of Parliament, and they decided, okay, let's send a clear message to the market. We fine everybody that doesn't report in the way we interpret these vague criteria. So some of my clients were fined. We spent years litigating about this, but then also the company said, "Oh, okay, if you fine us for giving you too little information based on these vague provisions, you know what we are going to do? We are just going to notify every medicine every month as being potentially subject to interruption." So the authorities basically that way embarked on a huge garbage in, garbage out exercise, because they just got data from the whole market every month that everything was potentially disrupted.
Exactly, and this is what I'm saying. They will have receive a lot of data are they ready first to receive them? Are they ready to understand them? Are they ready to maybe communicate back to the manufacturers to then ask, is it true? Is it, what's the situation exactly? Because yeah, there can be some real situation, but there can be also some non-real situation or not really dangerous situation. But as a manufacturer, if I'm afraid and say, oh, I'm not sure if I should report or not report, my conscience said report. It's better to report than not to not report. So at the end, we maybe receive more than what they were asking for.
Yeah, I think that, and there's another dimension there. So I agree with you that this may lead to data that is not per se useful because people will report just to avoid potential sanction. But the problem is also that the really problematic ones will also not report because of the signal that it gives. So on the one hand, you incentivize over-reporting, but you also incentivize keeping information hidden at the same time. So I think this is, it's really unfortunate that because we are in a process now where the whole pharmaceutical legislation on this point is being revised, that they didn't learn from that they just didn't look at that, like, how can we do this better? Because now it looks like we are going to make the exact same mistakes as were already made in medicinal products shortages reporting, which I think is really, it's such a waste of time, because this is a really big administrative burden for manufacturers, as we've established, because for every discontinuation, so even if, let's say I'm an Italian company, I hope this is not too stigmatizing, but anyway, apologies to the Italian in advance. In Italy, I know that companies may close for the whole month of August for summer holidays. Is that a disruption or is that
Interruption
of supply?
Yeah,
we don't know, because it may be a disruption of production, right? But the supply is something else. Supply is basically what comes out of the company.
maybe the distributor has already a lot of stock. Maybe also the healthcare professional has a lot of stock.
Or maybe the manufacturer has a huge stock and they can continue to supply. But what if the company is closed and the manufacturer also decides, well, we have stuff in our stock, but we are not going to supply for a month because we are closed, we are on holiday. You would need to then do a risk assessment. This is, if you read the text literally, this is what basically is going to cause this. So even if as a manufacturer, if you have a production cycle, so let's say, for example, you are a manufacturer with a, let's say, a more exotic conformity assessment procedure, like, let's say, for example, product quality assurance, right? And that means that every product is checked. Then usually you don't even have a fixed production cycle. So also you don't have a yardstick to measure discontinuation of production by.
Exactly.
Or you could also say, in the example that we just gave with the Italian company that goes on holiday in August, you can also say, yeah, but we have a normal 11 months production cycle. We are always closed in August. So if we don't supply in August, this is not a disruption of supply, because this is our normal way of operating. So it is so unclear what this means.
Exactly. And now, if we go to the practice of it, so will the notified body also check this kind of thing and maybe ask you a question about your procedure and check that you are really applying that, verify maybe the history of your supplies to verify if there was no disruption in the middle, etc.?
Absolutely, because this is something that you should have in your quality system. I think that if this requirement would have been implemented properly, the implementing regulation would also have included an element in Article 10, Section 9 for the MDR, and I think for the IVDR, saying Article 10A is an essential quality system element.
Exactly.
But they didn't. So now it is unclear. But I think notified bodies will take the position, look, this is about this is a quality system element, because this is about your supply chain strategy and how you make products available to the market. So we are allowed to audit this, and you need to have a procedure that describes how you manage this.
I think they can use the part called compliance strategy, compliance strategy. I can't remember the procedure for that. Regulatory compliance strategy that they have. So maybe this is one they can use to say you should write that in the regulatory compliance procedure for that.
Yeah, that would be a good place to start. Yeah.
So in terms of sanctions, you said there can be sanctions because they are not following EU MDR. So what type of sanctions now if we are going in the other side?
We don't know, because Article 112 MDR, and then there's also the IVDR equivalents, as member states have to establish the sanctions for contravention of the MDR and the IVDR.
So will it be, you think, will it be, but each competent authority will do that? Like you said, the Dutch authority has done that for pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, so what will happen is that either member states have, let's say, a catch-all provision that says if you infringe any provision under the MDR or the IVDR, you are subject to these enforcement measures, which may include penalties and so on, and penalties in the scope of this. Or member states can be very specific, as for example, in my home country, the Netherlands, the Act on Medical Devices that implements these sanctions is really, really specific and precise. So it lists for every provision what kind of sanction and what kind of scope of fine, whether penalty payments are possible. So it is listed. And so in the Netherlands, there is no sanction for this yet. So we are already behind. So if you are going to contravene the law, do it now, because at least in the Netherlands, because there is no sanction on it yet.
So again, maybe just to go a bit further on this, you said, yeah, Netherlands, maybe they will be going that. It's like the PRC, for example, for Italy. Italy are sanctioning the PRC when the others are sanctioning the company. So it's nearly the same kind of figure here. So Netherlands can have some sanctions, but maybe other countries will not have those sanctions also.
Well, yeah, or other member states may say, well, we find if they are smart, we find the provisions so unclear that we are going to just sit and wait for a while and see how the market solves this before we start to actually enforce. This is, for example, the approach authorities have mostly been taken with in-house produced devices.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't heard of any member state really cracking down on health institutions.
I think if you remember, we have made a podcast on this in-house device, and we talked about the hospital that they should have a quality management system. They should have some of this and that. And I said, oh, maybe it's great. It's a new business for consultants to work on that, but nothing, to be honest, to us.
Yeah, and for Article 5, Section 5, 26 May was the date on which everything entered into force from Article 5.5, except the justification requirement, which entered into force 28. But yeah, I mean, everything applies now. So, but you don't see any action on the part of the authorities, it seems. I think they're just sitting and waiting because they also don't know what to do.
Exactly. I mean, if it's not written, I mean, we can talk and talk if nothing will really happen here. Just a last point before we close here. So we talked about MDR, where there is no more legacy devices. IVDR, there are still some legacy devices until 2025. We discussed also on the fact that even for people that already plan to not move to IVDR with their products, even if they know about it already now, they have to go through this rule of informing the authorities.
Yeah, that's a very important point, because this touches upon the situation where a manufacturer has decided that they are not going to make an MDR or an IVDR application for their device. So it's currently a legacy device, but it's not going to be transitioned to the MDR or the IVDR. So for the MDR, this is a non-issue because the deadline for making applications to be a legacy device, so to continue on the market as a legacy device has passed, because that was 26 May this year. But for the IVDR, and this is also because this new regulation moves all these deadlines, is for the IVDR, you can be in a position where, as a manufacturer, you have a device, a directive device, IVDD device. And let's say, for example, you have a self-certified cancer test, which would be Class C under the IVDR. And you think, this is going to be such a lot of work to have this to the IVDR, so I'm not going to do that. So lots of IVD companies then think, oh, I don't have to do anything anymore. But that is not true, because first of all, they have the obligations based on as a legacy device to do PMS, economic operators, vigilance, and so on already to the IVDR. So that's one thing. But now, with this amendment of reporting, this reporting requirement also applies to legacy devices that they are not even going to apply for under the IVDR. So let's say we take the Class C device again, right? The cancer test. So we look in the
26, I think.
In the law, and it has changed, and it says, okay, so the deadline for your IVDR application is 26 May 2026. So that means that until 26 May 2026, your device can stay on the market, and afterwards you can't place any new ones on the market. But until that date, any discontinuations or interruptions of supply need to be reported. Then the question is also, and that's another point, is whether the fact that your regulatory deadline comes up and you are not going to transition the device to the IVDR, that would be also a reason that you need to report to the authority then. So you need to say, well, because you have a stupid transitional regime, it costs me tons of money, blah, blah, blah. This is why I'm not, this is why I am discontinuing the supply. Good luck with your stupid choices in the EU. But this is what we will see then.
So is now I'm the authority. I'm asking you to send me all those information of discontinuation, etc. What will I do with that? Can I oblige the manufacturer to say, no, guys, you are obliged to continue to supply, even if you don't have a certificate, we'll give you an exemption or whatever? Is there this kind of situation that can happen? Or no, it's just informative only, and there will be nothing that will happen after that?
Oh, it's just informative. There is no there isn't an obligation to supply. So at least not on the basis of the MDR, but there may be other emergency regulations in member states where this could happen, right? Because some member states have legislation that says they can nationalize a factory, for example, in case of problems. So
they have also to be ready in that case, maybe that if there is really a public threat or if there is something that is really important for the country, that the competent authority can ask them, no, you have to continue under this emergency situation. You have to continue and you have to provide.
COVID, that wasn't possible because there wasn't any legislation that made it possible. And we also saw in COVID that member states can't coordinate for shit when it comes to even a big health crisis. So this has hopefully gotten a bit better with the European work at HERA. Actually, was a recent report issued by how pandemic preparedness is doing in this regard. But I remember reading it and not being super optimistic about it. But yeah, this is basically where we are with this. Yeah.
So mainly it means that, people have to be informed about that, change their quality management system, create procedures, be ready to be audited by notified bodies about this question, be ready to maybe have sanctions from the competent authority that will be different from one country to the other, etc., etc.
Yes. So it's going to be complicated. Yeah, and they also need to, I keep telling companies now, look at your distribution agreements, and they say, yeah, that's because you're a lawyer, so you think this is interesting. But the problem is that if you are dealing with independent distributors in the supply chain, as soon as you start informing, hey, I have an interruption or discontinuation of supply, it may be that your independent distributor says, oh, then this is also non-performing under the distribution agreement.
Yeah.
I claim anticipatory breach. I claim damages, all this stuff. So this is why they also have to look at the contracts in the supply chain to account for this situation, that the fact that you inform of an anticipated interruption of supply doesn't mean that the other party is entitled to claim anticipatory breach, for example.
Yeah, you cannot just say, "Oh, it's the law, so it's why I have to do it," etc. It's not a good reason here. It's you have an agreement, you promise maybe to supply this amount of products or whatever. You have to respect that.
Yeah, well, you have to check if basically you've painted yourself into a corner with what's in the contract and what's now in the law. That's what companies also need to assess. So
yeah, so I said there are a lot of changes. So it's when you look at the kind of law now, the 10A is just a small 3, I think, paragraphs, but it has so many consequences for people. So it's why they have really to act now. And as you said, not wait until maybe December to start to think, oh, by the way, I have to make some modification on the procedures.
You can wait until you finally have MDCG guidance, but that may be in September or October, and then it might be too late.
Yeah.
So what we did do is my colleague UDAT de Wilde, she wrote an interesting document on how to do a risk assessment for Article 10A. We are going to include that the link to that in show notes. Yeah. We agreed, so that is already something to get people on their way. Yeah, and otherwise, I mean, it's you have to dare to be wise. I mean, even if guidance is slow and nobody's helping you, you still need to figure it out. You need to take a position on that, because if you sit and wait for too long, then reality may catch up with you. You're a hedgehog sitting on a highway. Oh, there's lights coming. Better just sit and wait and see what happens. That's usually the best way to do it.
No, it's great. So thanks again for all those information. I hope, as I said, I hope people will listen again, because as I said, we try here to warn you and to explain to you what is coming, and the objective is for you to be prepared and to make the updates on your documentation and not be surprised during an audit by those type of questions and say, oh, by the way, what's the situation about interruption or discontinuation of supply? And you're blurring and say, I have no clue what you're talking about. This is not good then. So it's why it's really important that you know about that. Okay, so great. As I said, I will put everything on the show notes. I will put also the text of the 10A on the show notes, so that you can check that, and the articles for that the blog post that is created here. And I hope, if you have any questions anyway, send us questions or your messages, and I hope it will be helpful for you. Okay, Erik, it was really a pleasure. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.